2014 Dodge Journey. The air conditioning is being recovered for a little damage. If you can see right there, that little buddy right there. It's not leaking, but it needs to be recovered or replaced, and it pushed back into the radiator. Combinations being replaced. Cold morning. And this is a dual system. So we got the 4.2. This is where it's important to pay attention to labels and actually know you have to read a label. So here's the 4.2 dual air conditioning, 900 grams. If it was a 2.0, 992 grams. I mean, yeah, 992. So 900, yeah. And the singles, look at the difference in the charges. If you mess these up, you can mess these up in winter time and you will never know it, because the dash temperature coming out of your dash will be perfect on a 30, 40, 50 degree day. If you grotesquely overcharge or grotesquely undercharge, the system will work perfectly on a cold day, and the technician doing the job will never know it. So if the technician doesn't know how to read labels and they can't size up, and they don't know they're supposed to size up engines, you could make a big mistake and never know it in the winter time when you charge it. And this is what I usually see happen in a lot of shops when they get winter collision in, and the technician eyes may see one thing, but then his eye drifts down and sees another number. Let's see if I get some focus here. My thing does not want to focus. God dang it. It makes two cameras that are having the same problem. There we go. So if your technician looks at one thing, but his eyes drift down and pick up the wrong fill charge, fills it up, it's nice and cold and perfect because it's cold out, he will never know he mischarged it. As soon as summertime rolls around or a hot springtime rolls around, that customer will have poor AC performance, and he probably won't come back to the shop. If it was a body shop, he'll go to a mechanical shop, not the body shop that did it, because he probably won't put together a collision repair damage to bad AC performance 4 months or 6 months later, and or burnt out compressor or burnt out clutch or throwing belt, having something to do with collision, when theoretically all was done is this little bit of damage here. They won't think about the guy who charged the AC caused the belt to throw and take out the alternator belt, the power steering belt, the water pump belt and stuff like that, because they overcharge the system, or smoke a compressor, or burn out the compressor clutch. Another problem, insurance companies are still not paying body shops a lot of time to compensate for doing refrigerant analyze, CCC, ADP, Mitchell, all data. They do not have it in their books in the little asterisk where you read down and included menus of doing procedures, that a shop should be getting paid for running their refrigerant analyze test, that a shop should be being paid more for doing recoveries, especially on YF. It takes a really long time. Here's 134, and I'm already 30 minutes into it because it's a cold morning. I already got it was hitting the bottom. Radiator was damaged on the bottom. I can't run the engine and warm it up. I'd like to put the heater on inside and warm the whole system up to help me reduce the recovery time, but because of the damage from up underneath and no coolant in the engine, it can't be run. So I'm 30 minutes into it and just finishing up on the recovery here. Usually if this was a YF and dual, this could go an hour or 2 hours, especially on a regular refrigerant recovery and recycling machine. And body shops are not getting compensated for this. This is something that has to be brought up. Body shops have to squawk, write your letters. Everybody has to do your emails, because you will lose your ass if you buy a new refrigerant recycling and recovery machine and you don't get paid for the procedures to perform it while you're tying up a rack. This rack space is supposed to be $120, $150 an hour. If you had a regular recovery recycler machine on here, and this is a YF dual AC system, this rack would be dead for the next 2.5 hours performing a recovery on a cold morning on an unheated shop on an engine that is dead because the radiator is damaged and there's no coolant in an engine, so there's no way for you to speed up the recovery procedure. So a shop loses money when they're trying to perform this procedure. Another sad note is 2 more of my shops have lost some of their senior mechanic automotive technicians, and I was really surprised. One had a lot of years in, and between how San Francisco's high cost of living and wages in automotive trade are pretty not so great, and you don't get raises on time, but yet your rent goes up. We had the COVID thing causing a lot of stress with technicians and not getting paid for a few months, and then only having reduced hours. Finally throwing in the towel and moving somewhere where they will get paid, or just don't care and take some time off and think about doing something else other than automotive. That has been happening a lot. Another one of my shops lost one of their senior shop writers, their estimators, shop, the manager basically, and they walked off and said to hell with California. Another one saying to hell with California and just leaving. And for the price of renting a little dump apartment in California, they were able to buy a 4-bedroom, 4-car garage with a 1/4 acre of land around it at the same price of the rent in San Francisco. And so they adiosed and left California altogether and got fed up with the automotive trade. They stayed in automotive trade. They're actually getting paid pretty good in the state they went to. What else? Let's see. Oh, back to insurance companies. They're really cracking down on what they do and don't want to pay for sublets. I've been hearing this, a lot of the stories about shops dropping AAA. AAA has been, I guess, on everybody's shit list lately, especially if they're direct. The cost of doing business here in California, especially the Bay Area, just on your hazardous waste. If you're in the Bay Area, especially San Francisco, even notches it up another step on all your hazardous waste pay and all the procedures of dumping your materials, and even your sandpaper and your wipe rags have to go in a separate container to be removed as waste, no longer in the garbage bin. It's insane here in California, and especially in San Francisco, the amount of money being spent for anything EPA related hazardous waste, even your clothes to be washed. This happened years ago when I was a mechanic, some 20 some years ago, 30 years ago. The clothes washing company started charging you like a surtax for hazardous waste because of like the transmission oil, engine oil, dust from brakes and all that kind of stuff. They actually tacked on a little tax onto your clothes washing bill and many other procedures like that. And insurance companies aren't reimbursing shops for this, for their costs. This is a little problem. The cost of living and the wages here in the San Francisco area, in the Bay Area here like this, when an insurance company base their pay, what they're gonna charge, pay a shop compared to what going shop labor rate is, I could speak from direct knowledge of AAA. They're literally paying the shops such a cheap hourly labor rate. They're just about as bad as Hertz. What Hertz would pay a shop to, like Hertz and Budget and Rent-A-Car and all those rent-a-car places, they select the cheapest of the cheap body shops who are willing to do work for below living wages, and where the shop owner could never offer any kind of support for medical or dental, no retirement, no benefits at all whatsoever, because their wages are so cheap. And the insurance companies want to do the same thing with their direct repairs. The hourly rate they're charging, the benefits for the technicians are actually garbage to nothing. And they can't keep it up no more. And now I understand why shops have been dropping AAA or contemplating dropping AAA and just charge them full price and say, screw you on your direct repair thing. I'll just cut you and charge you full price on everything. F you. And I could see some disdain is really, I'm getting hit with this every week from different shops. So something's going to have to change here, because as the shops are dropping and losing money, some insurance companies are going to find themselves between a rock and a hard place when there's only a few shops left who will stay on with them, and they finally wise up and get smart and say, F you, we're going to drop you too, and here's the rate you're going to pay, and you have no one else to go to because so many other shops have dropped you. You only have a handful left in all of the San Francisco area. So let's see what happens over the next year. This is the reason why my family, who owned body shops and mechanical shops, would not do business with certain insurance companies, and some would not do business with insurance companies. Made more money having no directs because they had such a clientele of private customers following them. They did not need directs. Once you're in that category, in that league, and you don't need directs, you could call your own prices, and if you're educated. But for the poor shops who are not, they're losing their ass. They just bend over and say, oh, I guess I have to not take, charge for this. Bullshit. I'm on the customer sides, but when an insurance company doesn't pay their directs enough so they could pay their employees a decent living wage, then I gotta say, screw you, insurance company. I'm gonna hit you up hard, because it's what's right and what's wrong, not what you make up and pull out of thin air as a price when you're comparing to somebody to, say, prices in Oklahoma or Tennessee, somewhere out in the countryside, or compare your prices here in San Francisco and go to some countryside little town and compare that shop labor rate and try to average it out with the city labor rate and say, we're going to only pay you this. That climate doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't work. And a lot of guys are losing their ass, and I'm just curious to see after a year how many of my shops are still left standing and how many of them are still doing business with AAA, because AAA is getting the axe from some shops. That's it. See you guys later.